Hello, everybody. Just making sure that we are live and everything is working. And my screen is just loading. Looks like we are live. So, good morning and welcome anybody who is joining in today on this Tuesday morning. And there is a printable outline for this painting. This is not a finished product. This is me just playing right before this. I am so excited to create more of like a storybook watercolor whimsical landscape. Again, the trees aren't painted in, but I was just playing with the texture and beauty of watercolor and just kind of getting a nice palette. So I was looking at using some golds, some light greens, mixed with browns, and then my favorite, Payne's Gray, and then we'll layer the trees on top of it. I'm creating a woodland collection, so I thought this would be a perfect add into the collection where there's a landscape, and I might even put a few of my animals in there when I go to digitize and scan this in. And I'd love to create a mural out of it is kind of my intention, or like I don't think it's actually called mural now that I say that. I think it's more of like a tapestry. So it would get printed on a piece of fabric. And I kind of want to put it big. So what I'll do is actually scan this in at a much larger resolution so I can blow it up without losing or making it pixelated and fuzzy. Again, if that concept is a little bit foreign to you, I'm putting together a digitizing guide and it's almost finished, but it'll explain how you scan in your artwork. And if you want to make it larger, you have to make sure that the resolution is larger as well. So anyways, the printable outline is available and it's an 8x10. And let's see. So I just, as you can see, I was testing. I didn't change my water out. I just have my Etcher travel palette here that I'll be using for today. And I probably just work as much as I possibly can with this nice big soft bristle pointed round brush. Good morning, Lynn. Thank you all for joining in today. The replay will be available, so if you're just popping in to say hi right now, the same link will access the replay. I'm using Arch's 140-pound cold press. I will say that is kind of the trick to getting those beautiful watercolor textures, is using that nice textured and cold press paper. Cotton paper too is really the key. All right, let's just go ahead and get started. These Paint With Me tutorials are supposed to be around 30 minutes, so it doesn't take up too much of your time. So what I'm going to do is start with this horizon line right back here and work my way down for the first ground layers. I want those to dry first, so then I can go back through and add some grass textures. And then we'll do the mountainscape in the back and then work our way to the forefront. So just be sure to leave some of your trees white so that we can go back and paint those. So with a nice wet brush, I'm going to be working with yellow ochres and also just a sap green. Those will be kind of the mixture in the background. And then I'll pull in some browns, some darker greens, things like that. So just going to mix up a little bit of sap green and yellow ochre. And I would say I don't have a pooling amount of water on my brush, just enough to let it smooth and glide right along the paper. Just painting in my horizon line back here. And I want to make sure that my edges of my painting are feathered. I don't think I want that to go all the way to the edge, but you totally are welcome to do that. So the fun thing about mixing with watercolor is that you can grab paint in your palette and grab a different range of that and just start painting that in next to it. It's going to color mix beautifully right on the paper like this. Sometimes I'll just pick up water and dab it on my paper towel and I can smooth and spread what I have out. And mine is looking pretty yellow right now, but I can, since it's workable right now with being so wet, and 140-pound cold pressed paper allows you to do that. I'm just going to let it be there, and then I'll grab some green. So let's grab some sap green. Might even add a little hint of like Payne's Gray blue in there. And we'll just drop that in places. Again, it's going to be a really pretty watercolor look. I always love natural landscape colors. I don't do it enough, so it's really fun to be able to paint this with you all. And again, if we don't like how yellow some areas are, you just take your brush and you run it along, and it's going to kind of soak up some of those areas. Love a big round, pointed round brush to be able to soak up paint. So you can start to see some of those fun watercolor wash lines coming in. I'm even going to grab some browns. I'll drop that in. You might be able to hear my dog snoring in the background. He's just having a lazy Tuesday morning over here. Have fun with this part. I'm kind of just having fun and going quick, dropping it in places before it dries. Now I want to grab a mix of like sap green and Payne's Gray. And that's what I'm going to work into the forefront. I don't want it too dark as you work forward here, but just something that's going to differentiate from the sun hitting in the back field of this landscape. And again, messy edges is kind of the name of this storybook painting. I don't want anything too perfect. It's whimsical, light-hearted. It's for a nursery collection, so I like that storybook illustration look. So I'll just feather it like this. And then what I will do down here is I intend to put some type of waterway stream up front here. So again, I'll grab that same blue color, and with the tip of my brush, so I'm just picking my brush and going more up and down towards the paper. I'm just going to do a few fun skinny brushstroke motions of grass. Make sure they kind of split and go different directions to look more natural, but that'll be what helps to divide our grass, at least the first layer, into the water here. And then once this dries, we'll be able to layer on more grass texture that we can't do right now, but you can at least add in the dark shadowed areas that you want darker, and they're just going to do that really pretty blooming effect that you can't get when it's dry. So here, just grabbed more Payne's Gray. I'm just dropping that in just for a little bit of a variety of depth. So here you can kind of see the watercolor magic happening. I love the brown mixing with the greens and the yellows in the background there. All right, I still have little Payne's Gray in my brush. I'll probably stop right there and let that foreground dry. Give you guys a second to kind of catch up if you're just having fun laying in your foreground. Yeah, so for the water, just kind of do a really light blue. So ultramarine blue is really pretty. And you could even mix a little bit of green with that. But it's going to be mostly water, a little bit of blue paint. That I'll just bring right in here. So again, I just picked up more water. It just felt too blue. And this will show our water in the foreground here. Remembering to keep it that fun, jagged edge. I love doing this for like house portraits, as I won't paint all the way to the edge sometimes, or on venues, buildings, and it just looks so pretty. Okay. We can grab a little bit of green just so we can drop it into that water before it dries. Just take some of that. Just drop it in. Let it expand and do its thing. What I will do is add more detailed grass that kind of comes out of that water once it dries. But at least we can kind of see our division line there between the water and the land. Okay. So from here is focusing on the mountainous background, and then we'll work on our details in the foreground, like our trees, because I want to be able to control where those are. The mountain will be light enough where you don't need to worry if you get into an area that you're going to paint a little bit over with the trees. For my mountains, I use a really light wash of Payne's Gray. So mostly water, a little bit of paint. Feel free to rotate your painting if you need, if your hand is going to bump your foreground. But what I like to do is just kind of run a little line on the outside of my mountain here. And then I just pick up more water and I kind of rub that paint down and into that top half of the mountain. I'll grab some more water and I'll just start to paint some jagged rock-like lines that kind of come down. I have not picked up more paint yet, just adding in water. I just want one side of the mountain to be a little darker. I'll probably leave quite a bit of white highlights. Since it's in the background, it does not need to be as detailed. Plus, this isn't a real detailed painting anyways. I have not picked up more paint. I am using whatever is on my brush with a little bit of water. But what I will do now is pick up a little more Payne's Gray. And this, since it's still wet, we can drop it in back in the areas that I do want to be darker. And then can even take my brush, smooth it out into some of those ridge lines. Bringing that wash down. Okay, let's see, maybe a little bit more. Don't need a whole lot more of Payne's Gray. Watercolor does dry lighter, so you might want to just account for that. All right, so there's my watercolor wash. Mountain there. The foreground of the mountain is going to have kind of like a tree hill in the back. Still not super detailed, and then our trees up front here will have a little more detail. So with that, the tree line back here is going to be a combination of the blues and the greens. So kind of looking in this range of colors up here to have a nice contrast from where the sun is hitting on this part of the painting. So I'll grab some of my Payne's Gray, just up here. And then I'll grab just some of that sap green, so I have kind of a darker mix. Dab it on my paper towel first, just to make sure I don't have too much, but the darkest area will be where the foreground, or where that horizon line hits the tree line. I am going to be careful to leave a little bit of white space for my trees. But there's our division line. I'll just pick up more water. I'm going to pull that color up. And I like having some messy white of the paper showing with this style. So here we are up there. I just grabbed a little more water, just going to kind of continue it down. Don't worry, our trees will layer over this. All right. So there was just kind of a quick hillside. I am going to drop more paint in there quick before it fully dries. So again, Payne's Gray, mixing with some sap green. I might even try and neutralize that a little bit more and just add a little bit of brown to that mixture. I just don't want it too green. Just because of the way the atmosphere and landscapes are, it shouldn't be too rich of a color back there. So I just want to tone that down a little bit. Okay. So that is just to kind of give one little more interesting piece to the background. Before we show our detail in the tree line. All right. I do like the way this is going. I don't know if I want to add a sky. Oh, I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave it white for now, and I'll just evaluate at the end or even look at it tomorrow to decide if a sky would be a good idea or not. Okay, so as much as I want to try and stick with this big brush, I might switch to a smaller brush for some of these trees. So I have a size 6 here with a pointed round tip to it. Just because I do need to get a little more detailed in some of these, so. All right, let's grab a little bit of brown. And then just want to paint in a little bit of this trunk. I won't paint it all the way up because I need some of these pine needles to show in the foreground of the trunk. So just drawing a little line on the left edge here, and might just pop a few more up top here. Might even try a little bit of the sienna colors, so it's a little bit of a lighter brown on this side. So then I'll just use more of a flatter wash to bring that tree trunk up. Again, making sure that I leave some areas still white. Okay, so the pine tree is going to be a mix of the greens that we were using, especially in this back hillside. So sap green mixed with the Payne's gray. And then even just a lot more Payne's gray to make it darker. Even some brighter colors too, just to help it pop. Again, this is messy, more of a messy style, so I'm not going to paint every little piece. I'm more so just going to paint little fun textury dots. Like this. And just kind of do that for a few branches to start. We'll take a look at it. We'll add in a few other paint colors too. So I'll just kind of carry that up here. I'm just using the light tip of my brush as I work my way up the tree. Pretty messy there, but more controlled than up front here. Okay, let's grab a little more of the brighter greens and mix it with the greens we were just using. And that's going to give us more of that medium color. And let's do some other branches. Just to give a little variety. We can always add darker paint, but you just can't add the lighter paints into the dark. So always good to remember that. So kind of those sprucey or sparse, that's the word I was looking for, sparse like trees. Feel free to make your trees however, if you already have a tree technique that you really love to use. You can fill it in even more. But for now, that's what I will try. And if you missed a little piece here, you can either add more pine needles or paint in more of the trunk. I'll work on this tree next. I always like to paint that trunk in just so I can kind of see the line I'm working with. So again, I have kind of that darker color that I did. Might even add a little touch of that back in. And I'm going to do the same on this one. So painting on the left side, a little bit of a darker line. Kind of add a few more, working my way up. And then I'm going to pick up the sienna colors and paint down the right side with a little more water, flatter wash. Add a few more up top here. And back to what we were doing with the pine needles. So we have our dark Payne's gray mixed with a sap green. That's what I'll do here with those same sketchy like strokes. So that's why I wasn't too worried about overlaying this onto the paint we've already laid in, because it's just darker, and with watercolor you can do that. So again, just adding that there. And even add some darker pieces. Now mine's dry, so I can set my hand in there. Okay. Let's add in some of the brighter colors. So the yellow ochre mixed with the color of the green we were just working with. Just to add a little variety. Just don't want to overdo it. Might even add a little bit of a brighter tone in there. Grab a little more of that yellow. Looks like you can't really see it too much. Okay. A couple more trees in the background, and then you can even add some more too once this is finished. Let's just see how this goes. So just grab a little more of that Payne's gray. I'm not going to worry about the trunks as much as I am on these ones in the back. You just won't see them. So this one's a little bit still taller in the foreground. Just keeping it nice and loose and messy. I'll just continue on with the same color here, just to paint in some of these back here. Hopefully my trees aren't too crooked, but they can, obviously, they can grow however they grow. Some jet straight out from those mountains. It's always so crazy to me how they can grow in such weird angles and onto rocks. Just gonna grab a little more of that darker color. Get to this little tree over here. It's kind of nice. You don't have to show quite as much detail. It's so far in the background. All right, so I have 5 little trees here. Let's add in those trunks. So the brown, I'll even mix a little more Payne's gray into there so it's not quite so perfectly brown. So we want to show it into the foreground, not only in the mountains. All right. So I want to add in a few more fun details of the grass up front, and then I'll probably take a step back from it and just see if it needs anything else. It might need some more just detailed trees, a little bit of less detailed trees in the background here. But for now, let's add in some of those fun little grass pieces. I am using just the lightest pressure with a green, and kind of that same green we were working with up here, to create some of these longer whimsical grasses. And you want to kind of make sure that they're going to angle at different directions just to make them look more natural. Some are going to be longer, shorter, darker, lighter. Take some of that same green and we can add some kind of right around the trees at the base here to make them look a little more grounded. I don't want to take away too much from the looser illustration. Can add some of the lightest little whimsical textures there. So this is what I have. Just enough to make it look like grass and a little more detail up front here. I love playing with this messy style. I don't get to do it very often when I'm doing pet portraits. So it's just fun to let loose and explore different techniques with watercolor. I can kind of see that I need to add a little bit more of a darker blue just to help differentiate the water from that grass. So Payne's gray. I don't need a lot because right now it's going to layer on top of the previous layer. So again, I just switched to a bigger brush. I'm just going to drop some of that right there where the bank of the water meets the land. So something like that. But again, I think that if you'd like, I think it would help to kind of add a little more texture and detail. Doesn't need a lot, so with Payne's Gray and that green, just to add what looks like could be a little more evergreen trees in the background. Like that's even darker than I intended, so I'll just pick up more water and smooth it out. These bigger brushes just hold on to way more paint. But I just want to kind of give the illusion of darker trees back here. I don't need to draw too much attention back here, but just something to help break up some of those flat pieces. Maybe get rid of some of that white that got left behind. I'm just softening some of those little areas. Really important just to take a step back. If you're not sure of something, just come back with fresh eyes a different time. Alrighty. So there I have my storybook-like illustration of a landscape. I still might add a sky. I think what I'll do first is scan it in and just see how it looks to create a kind of a larger mural tapestry piece before I add the sky. It also would work just fine too if I decided to add the sky, and I could always get rid of it in Photoshop. So really I'm not at a loss either way, and I'll do that quite often with my paintings. You might even find that you want to go back through and add in just the lightest little washes to create more of like some realism, some little bit of realism. So you can add in shadows from your trees, just with little lines like that. So really light amount of paint on my brush. Just helping to break up some of that yellow. But here we are, and I hope you guys really loved playing around with more of a looser style than I usually teach and explore with. Just kind of fun to try different things. You never know, you might land on something that just completely speaks to you, and not every painting is going to turn out how you had hoped, so don't ever get discouraged with these outlines that you can print them out multiple times, so you are not stuck on a certain look of a painting. Just try it again. That happens quite often for me, so I want you to know that it happens to everybody. Okay, everybody, I can't wait to see if you do this tutorial. Go ahead and share it online. You could post it to your Instagram feed, story, and I'm over there most. That way, if you tag me at Windswept Design Studio, I can see it. Tune back again next Tuesday. It is Valentine's Day, so it will be more of a Valentine's Day themed painting series for that day. Okay, thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you next week.